Thank you, everyone, for attending the Courage to Heal Summit. I'm really excited about our next speaker. She's going to give some amazing strategies for healing. And so I want to introduce you to her, Rozlan Luck. Roslyn, take it over from here.
Well, hello, everybody. It is indeed a pleasure to be here on this great morning with such great speakers and the like. So, I am, as stated, Rozlan Luck. I am the founder of the Power of You Academy, where we help women and men, but mostly women, find their voice through a place that I call the crown effect, right? So it's courage and resilience, and we talk about optimism. And it was amazing to be here because this is that, right? Courage to heal. And what I'm going to speak to you about today is from surviving the story to leading yourself forward. And how do you do that, right? So, again, I want to welcome you to my talk. So, welcome to Courage to Heal. So, if you are listening to this or if you catch the replay, I want to say something very important before I actually begin. You're not here because you're broken, or you're not listening because you're broken. You're listening or you're here because something in you is brave enough to want to heal. Healing doesn't begin with fixing yourself. It begins with telling your truth, right? It begins with slowly, safely, and honestly acknowledging, telling your truth. Trauma has a way of teaching us how to minimize pain, spiritualize our suffering, things that meant to take us out, right? Trauma teaches us how to be quiet about those things. So I'm going to speak with you today on three essential stages of healing. Emotionally acknowledge and name it. Emotionally acknowledge and name it. And then we want to reframe it. Reframe that story with truth, right? Not what you thought or some things that someone told you, but we want to reframe it with truth. And we want to talk about boundaries and consistent self protection. Consistent self protection. And those are the things that we're going to talk about today. So don't be confused. This is not a lecture, and I'm not going to bore you to death by lecturing you. What I want to do is just invite you back to you. I just want to invite you back to you. So if that's okay, let's dig in. So, how, Roslyn, would you advise me to emotionally acknowledge and name something that I'm not aware of, right? Healing does not begin with forgiveness. It does not begin with resilience. It does not begin with strength. Healing begins with acknowledgement, as we stated, right? Trauma thrives in silence. It thrives in minimization, and it thrives in spiritually bypassing it. What do I mean by that? I'm an evangelist in the church, and many years ago, it was taboo to see a therapist in some ministries. They didn't, God will provide, God will, God will, God will. So you didn't need um, any outside help, if you will. So today, I want to talk about what that looks like. Many of us were taught other people have it worse, to you don't complain, you're still here, you're still walking, you're still doing all these things. And these are the things that play back in our minds. At least you survived it. How many of us have heard that before? Well, at least you survived it. At least you did this. Don't dwell on the past. Move forward. Forget about that. That happened, right? And then the one big one that I used to get a lot is just be grateful. Some people didn't make it. Okay, so what do I do with that? What do I do with that as a person that is stacked up so much trauma internally? I've been taught to suppress. I've been taught to leave that bag packed and put it away in the back of the closet. You don't need that anymore. Well, to put that pain aside is not acknowledging because it doesn't disappear. It stays packed until you need those clothes, until somebody scratches across the surface of a sore that once triggered you before. It just relocates itself, right? It relocates itself into something else. And I'm going to tell you some things it shows up as. It shows up as anxiety. It shows up as hyper independence, right? I don't need anybody for anything. It shows up as people pleasing. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. I'm here to help. So we have to honor those things, of course, because that means that something hasn't been dealt with. It also shows up as chronic exhaustion because how many of us realize it takes a lot to try to be somebody that you're not? It takes a lot. That's why they call acting a job, right? It takes a lot to show up and try to be someone else. It also shows up in anger that just doesn't make sense. Why am I upset? Why am I feeling like this today? And then the last one, which is a really big one, numbness. How many of us have just certain things just don't even bother you, or so you think? You're just numb to it. You wipe it out of your mind. You desensitize. Those things are never good for us, but those are some of the things that we pick up to try to deal with it. So in order for us to have that courage to stand up and to say, I don't want this anymore, is a huge step. So don't think that because you haven't or because you think you have, that it takes something away from who you are. Naming the pain is not weakness. It's self-honesty, right? Self-honesty. And here's the truth. Most people don't tell you, you cannot heal what you cannot identify. You can't heal what you can't identify. And if it doesn't have a name, then what are you going to call it? How are you going to heal it? How are you going to place it if you're afraid to name it, right? Naming the pain means a couple of things. What happened to me mattered, number one. Number two, it hurts and it still hurts. It in some way shaped me, not made me, but just shaped me, shaped how I identify with me, shape how I identify even with you or how I recognize you. And it also allows me to tell the truth about it. When I name it, it allows me to accept that it happened to me and it allows me to tell the whole story. And how many of us know if we don't pluck up the root, it will grow back, right? So naming that thing, acknowledging that thing gives you power to really get it up out of there, out of the root, and do what you need to do with it. Put it in its proper perspective and learn what it means for your life going forward. This is not about reliving the trauma. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to constantly over and over and over again talk about something to relive it, right? We are locating it and we're putting it in its proper place. Trauma isn't just something that happened to you, it's something that happened internally, inside of you. Because how many of us know when we talk about packing away things, we're not talking about physically. All of that stuff is in there. It's in our hearts, it's in our minds, in the back of our minds. And then that's when people start talking about those triggers. And I know we've heard about those triggers and how they affect us, right? That's where that comes from. When you have something that triggers you, it hasn't been dealt with and it hasn't been properly compartmentalized. Therefore, it becomes an anchor. It becomes something that you don't really want, but it's there, number one, to remind you of all the bad and not how to deal with it from its proper perspective. Right? When we don't name it, our nervous system keeps sounding the alarm long after the danger is gone. Okay, red flag, red flag, red flag. Now, if we don't properly know how to deal with that, those red flags, those triggers, we are going to, as my one of my pastors used to say, we're going to bleed on people that aren't cut, right? We're going to bleed on people that aren't cut, that aren't hurt. And we're going to become the trauma in their lives if we don't properly put our places or put our things in perspective, right? We don't want to be that. We don't want to be our problem to someone else, right? So I want you to ask yourself gently, or I'm going to ask you a few questions. And I just want you to think about these things, right? What are you still calling fine that is actually devastating? When someone asks you, how are you as it relates to certain situations or certain traumas that you've been through, and you say, oh, I'm fine. Oh, it's okay. How many of us are still calling that thing fine, and it's actually tearing us up on the inside when we're in our secret place? All right, that's question number one. Question number two, what are you calling normal that's actually harmful? If not to you, remember I said when we're hurt and bleeding, we bleed on others. What is it that you think is normal that is actually harmful to others? How many of us have heard people say, oh, I'm just blunt. I just call it like it is. Well, when you're hurting someone else, is that a trait you really want to be proud of? Right? Think about that. And thirdly, I want to know, what did you survive that you never fully grieved? Because when you kill a thing, it's a natural instinct to grieve a thing, right? So we have to grieve those things that we kill. And if we're going to kill all of these harmful things in order to get to our healing, we have to properly grieve. We have to properly grieve. So we're talking about acknowledging that thing, right? So as I move forward, this is what acknowledging it feels like. This is what it feels like. I was abused. And be okay with people looking at you side-eyed, right? I was abused. I was abandoned. I was neglected. I was betrayed. I was lost, right? That's what acknowledging looks like. It looks like I am acknowledging every single thing that has happened to me, and I'm calling it a thing, and I'm okay with how you receive that. Because why? It's my truth. It's my truth. Don't You don't have to justify it. You don't have to compare it. You don't even have to explain it. It's just your truth. I was abused. And I'm okay today with you knowing that I was abused. Many years ago, I was not okay with that. It was, to me, it was something that was very embarrassing because I felt I allowed that. So for me, it was, it made me less than, because I always say I'd never let a man hit me, especially when I heard about it from someone else, until it happened to me. And I was taken aback. I had no idea what to do. I knew I couldn't beat him. I knew I couldn't win. So what do I do now? So I packed that away. You will never know about that. Nobody's ever going to know about that. Right. And that's what we do. But now, and then I used to, yeah, he did, but he was bigger than me. That's how I explained it away. Or I just didn't have a place to go, or this or that or the other. We try to explain it away. You don't have to do that. We don't have to do that when we're on our journey to healing. Our journey to healing is not about anybody else. How many of us know that? That's not about anybody else. Our journey for healing is simply about me, right? You simply just have to name it. Because when pain is named, it loses power, and it loses its power to render you silent. That's what, when you name it, that's what it does. And let me be clear, you honor your faith, you can honor your resilience and your survival without erasing that pain. I'm not saying erase it, because how many of us know if we didn't have history books, we would be apt to repeat those things. So I don't want you to erase anything. I want you to remember it so that you recognize it when it shows its head again. And you properly know where it goes in your life, and therefore it has no place there, right? So we want to always be sure of that pain. So, number one, we want to acknowledge it. All right. Number two, we want to reframe the story with truth, not the trauma. We want to reframe the story with truth. So, for me, my initial story was when people ask, well, why aren't you married to him anymore? And I would give all of these things and tell a whole story. We just weren't equally matched, and all the things that you would lovely say about even your abuser, right? Once pain is acknowledged, the next stage is to reframe that. So I had to tell the truth without defaming or without letting anybody else uh, shining a bad light, even though it was bad. It's not my job to convict, right? My job is to tell my truth as it relates to me. Whatever he is, wherever he is, I pray God has blessed him and he's better than he was when he was with me. But that's not my story to tell. I'm healing me. So this is not about him. This is about me, right? So when you tell it, trauma is not just what happens to you. It is where you're forced to assign what's happened to you, right? It whispers lies like, it was my fault. That was my number one. I deserved it. I never really felt that as it relates to the abuse, but I felt that because I had naysayers and I believed them to just not be on my side, I I felt like I deserved it from that standpoint. I should have known better. Um, just different things that we tend, the story that we write in our head. Um, and over time, those lies stop sounding like trauma and they start sounding like who we really are. They sound like our identity. Reframing it is not pretending, right? It's not pretending that you didn't get hurt, you didn't get abused, you didn't get molested, you didn't. It's not pretending that those things never happened. It's interrupting the lie and replacing it with truth, right? I was in a bad situation. What happened to me was not okay, but it did happen. And it did shape my outlook on relationship. You can say things like my response was survival. I didn't fail. I just responded differently, right? I adapted because I had to. And then I wasn't broken. I was protecting myself, right? So these are the things that we tend to, how we tend to reframe our story. So here's something powerful. So you are not who trauma says you are, right? I'm not broken. I was broken, but I am not broken. Um, you are not, you are who you were before you lost your voice. You're still that same person. You may be older. Um, you may be a little bigger. You may be a little smaller, but you're that same person. Now you have to figure out, how do I travel back to that person and include what I've learned from what I've gone through to make me a better version of that person. That's your journey. When you take that first step to have the courage to actually want to be healed and you've acknowledged what's happening to you, now you're reframing this story. You're not erasing anything. You're just putting that story into its proper perspective. You're putting it, it's like you're reclaiming authorship, right? So, how many of us are co authors in any anthology? So, it may not have been your vision, but you have that portion of that vision belongs to you because it's your story as you tell it. So Reframing does not erase your story, it reclaims your authorship. Remember that. Trauma-centered stories say, I survived, but I'll always be damaged. That's when you put the trauma at the center of your story. I survived, and I'll forever be damaged. I'll forever be broken. But if you reframe that, you will say, I survived and I'm no longer a victim, right? I'm thriving in that survival. Truth-centered stories, I survived and now I decide who I become. I decide. That's when you truly take hold of the story that you've reframed. Now, don't reframe it and make it into something you think I want to hear. You have to truly be honest with yourself and tell the story as you truly see it from a healed perspective or from a perspective of healing, right? And then reframing will ask you certain questions, right? Why did this happen to me? Is not the way you want it to frame it. You want to say, what did I learn about myself while surviving what I went through? Not why did this happen to me? Because why not? You're one of millions. So why not you? What makes you different, right? So what we want to say is, what did I learn about myself while surviving this? Secondly, we don't want to say, what did this take from me? We want to say, what truth can I now live having traveled down this path? What truth do I now live by traveling this path? And then you want to realize that you're not weak, you're resourceful, you're not foolish, you were hopeful. Things could get better. That's not foolish, that's hopeful. And you're not naive, you're human, right? And now you're wiser. Truth does not deny trauma, it outgrows it. We are outgrowing our trauma by learning where to put it. And then thirdly, I want to talk about embodied boundaries and consistent self-protection. The final stage of healing is where everything becomes real and we set those boundaries, right? When we set those boundaries, we set those boundaries to give us the power to move forward. Boundaries are not something you talk about, it's what you live. And that's where a lot of us get, just because I set a boundary and then I go and I say, well, okay, when somebody starts to cross the line, I give grace. And then I begin to erase the boundary line. When I give grace once, that's grace. When I consistently give grace that crosses my boundary line, I've just erased that line and it's no longer a boundary. And I never made it a priority for me to make it a boundary. So think about that. Insight without action keeps trauma in charge, right? So we want to set those boundaries and we want to live by those boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, right? They're not, a physical thing that can't be crossed. They're not punishments and they're not ultimatums. Boundaries are simply self-respect in motion. I respect me enough to set this boundary to tell you what I can give of you, right? Or of me to you. What can I give of me? And then a lot of us have a problem with no sometimes. That goes back to that people pleasing. It's okay to say no. It's not a bad word. It's not a dirty word. It's a real live word. And it's a full, complete sentence that needs no explanation, right? How many of us feel like we have to explain when we have to say no to somebody, right? We don't. I don't owe you an explanation to tell you that I don't have time to do a thing. Embodied boundaries sound a little something like this. I don't explain myself to people committed to misunderstanding me, right? I listen to my body's cues. If I feel uneasy about a thing, that's my body telling me that that's not something that I want to, dig into. I stop engaging when something feels unsafe. Some of us would say when I'm feeling triggered, stop, completely stop and deal with that emotion that you're having. And then I choose peace over proving. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I'm peaceful about my situation. I can talk about my situation and how you receive it really is up to you. It has nothing to do with me. Those are reactions that are not mine to carry. So I won't take ownership of those, right? And then protect your energy or your peace, as I would call it. Protect that at all costs, right? That is your saving grace. Your peace is going to be your saving grace. If you give that away, you're going to start from scratch in certain areas of your life because you're allowing an abuser to take control of your story again. So operate in that peace, right? Healing teaches us to pause. It teaches us to slow it down, take a deep breath, and just pause. Check in with your body, to honor your discomfort, and to leave without guilt, right? Take a pause and really, really allow you to become one with yourself and not feel like you have to apologize to anyone for setting and keeping a boundary. And I'm going to tell you the biggest key to this is consistency. Once you start setting those boundaries, people learn from you what your boundaries are, and they'll say, well, I'm not going to ask Roz about that because number one, it's after 5 o'clock. And if I wanted her to do something, I would have had to give her time to put it on her schedule and then see if she could get to it. Because now your emergency is not my emergency. And I won't make it my emergency, right? So we have to make sure no boundary is too big if it keeps you in a peaceful place. Now, can it be restructured as you move forward and as you continue to heal? Yes, but no boundary is too big, right? And I want to say this, the nervous systems learn safety through repetition. So if you set a boundary, give yourself time to acclimate to the boundary that you've set because it's new to you too. It's not just new to the people that you're setting the boundaries with, it's new to you too. So give yourself grace, give yourself time to acclimate to the boundary that you set. You don't heal by becoming tough and mean and resentful. You heal by becoming safer to yourself. Treat you like you would want someone else to treat you. Be good to you. That's how your healing journey will begin. Acknowledge it, reframe the story that you tell yourself, and finally, set those boundaries, be consistent, and keep them, right? Courage to heal is not loud. It's steady, it's honest, and it's embodied. All right? Steady, honest, and embodied. Healing doesn't mean that your past never mattered. It means it no longer controls you. Name your pain because truth sets the foundation. Reframe the story because trauma is not the narrator, you are. And then live those boundaries because healing must be practiced. Listen, you got to have the courage to take the first step. The courage to healing is huge, but you only need to do one thing at a time, one small way at a time, and move at your own pace. Nobody can set a time limit on your healing. No one can set a time frame on what it takes for you to move from acknowledging to reframing to actually moving and setting those boundaries. It's yours to make. It's your journey to take. I just invite you to come along. Let's do it together. And no matter how long you've been in your situation, your healing could take days, months, or years. It's go at your own pace and ensure that you're doing the work to properly touch all those trigger points and compartmentalize them where they need to go. Again, my name is Rozlan Luck. I have enjoyed every single minute of talking with you all and being here and sharing what the steps that I took to be present in this journey. I can be reached at RoslanLuck.com. And I do have a book. It's called she carries glory. And it's how I proceeded through this part of my journey. She Clary's Journey has a journal, and I work with people in my coaching business through that book to help them see who they really were and how to get back there and not have to erase what they've been through, but just learn from the journey. Ladies and gentlemen, learn from your journey and be your own narrator. Don't let anyone tell your story better than you. God bless you is my prayer. And thank you for your time and thank you for listening.